Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Douglas Levine. I am a judge trial referee on the appellate court. I am also the co-chair of the Hate Crimes Advisory Council, which many of you may be familiar with us, but many of you may not. We are empowered to investigate how we can improve in the state of Connecticut the investigation, prosecution, sentencing of hate crimes, how police can do a better job when they go out to a hate crime, and all manner of things. We've been meeting for about 3 years, and I think we have a great committee, and I'm very proud of what we've been doing. Some of the proposals that have been made are really unique to Connecticut. Connecticut's really, I think, on the cutting edge of a lot of this information. The goal, of course, is to make sure that if any citizen in our state is subjected to a hate crime or a hate incident, they know there's a place to go and that they will be heard by state officials. We're here today because there are a number of people who have been working very, very hard on a number of proposals. We are delighted that Governor Lamont is in support of a proposal to consolidate the statutes in Connecticut. I'll be very brief, but the statutes are kind of all over the place in hate crimes. And so there's been a proposal coming out of this council to simplify and clarify the law of hate crimes, which we think will be a good thing for the people, a good thing for the prosecutors, and yes, even a good thing for the defense lawyers, because they will understand the law better. So thank you very much for coming, and we want to thank the governor so much for his support of the consolidation statute. You'll be hearing much more about that shortly. Let me introduce now Amy Lynn Meyerson, who is the co-chair of the Hate Crimes Advisory Council.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Lynn Meyerson, along with Judge Doug Levine. We and our fellow council members on the Hate Crimes Advisory Council are using our broad base of knowledge, skills, and experience to work collaboratively with the governor's office, federal and state lawmakers, law enforcement, judges, and the community. The Hate Crimes Advisory Council has submitted over 50 recommendations to Governor Lamont and also our state legislators on how best to prevent and fight hate crimes. The consolidation of the Connecticut hate crime statute, along with the launching of reporthate.ct.gov, are concrete steps to making Connecticut safer and more welcoming. Professor Richard Wilson and Sachin Pandey took the lead in drafting the consolidated hate crimes legislation.
Hello, everyone. As Judge Levine and Amy Lynn Meyerson mentioned, we began our work in 2021, and the first thing we did was to review the Connecticut hate crime statutes to see if they were workable and functioned in the way that they were intended. We spoke with prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, and police, and we found that they are not workable in these ways. They are scattered all over the Connecticut General Statutes. Some of them were written in the 1880s. They're inconsistent with each other in terms of the groups that they protect and also their intent requirements. This interferes with police prosecution, police charging, and also with prosecutions. They also only address lesser crimes. They don't address serious hate crimes such as murder and arson. For these reasons, we engaged in a process of consolidating and revising the Connecticut hate crime statutes, and my colleague at UConn Law, Professor Pandey, is going to speak about the statute itself.
And so the Hate Crimes Advisory Council proposal tackles these various problems. Among the other things it does, the proposal puts all the hate crimes in one place in the criminal code. That makes it easier for police to find them. It makes them more consistent in what they require and who they protect. That makes the law easier to understand and enforce. It adds hate crime penalty enhancements for crimes involving physical injury or property damage, including for murder, arson, and other more serious crimes. It extends the Attorney General's authority to investigate and bring civil actions on behalf of victims of any hate crime, not just a select few. It authorizes judges to order participation in anti-bias programs for someone convicted of any hate crime, not just a select few. It extends the persistent felony offender provision in the code to cover all hate crimes. And last but not least, it labels these hate crimes hate crimes. We have a state hate crimes advisory council, We have a hate crimes investigative unit of the state police, but our hate crimes are not actually called that. This bill changes that so that they're labeled hate crimes for the first time, and that hopefully will makes it absolutely clear that there's absolutely no doubt that in Connecticut we don't tolerate harming or threatening anyone due to their race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any protected social category.
Thank you. Commissioner Ron L. Higgins from the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection oversees the State Police Hate Crimes Investigative Unit.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, I'm pleased to be here today with the Governor and our State's Attorney, our Chief State's Attorney, the ADL, and members of the Hate Crime Advisory Council. Again, thank you, Governor Lamont, for taking the lead with this legislation. It is through this partnership that we will see fresh progress to combat bigotry and bias in the state of Connecticut. Hate crimes are not individual events. The anger, the anxiety, and the vulnerability ricochets throughout our communities, and it impacts us in places where we should feel safe, in our homes, on our sidewalks, and on campuses. We've seen a 50% rise in hate crimes since 2021, from 87 crimes reported in 2021 to 130 through the third quarter of 2024. Nearly all of these incidents involve bias related to race, religion, or sexual orientation. At desk, the Connecticut State Police Hate Crimes Investigative Unit works with law enforcement and community partners across the state to surface and track hate crimes. As this work grows and evolves, my message has been clear. We will investigate all hate crimes, and we will investigate all reports of bigotry and bias. Our holistic and interagency approach sends a clear message that we've seen signs of improvement and declines in bias-motivated events, but there's still work to do. Hate crime and related civil rights laws are here to protect all of us. I'm in touch with our Chief State's Attorney, Mr. Patrick Griffith, and regularly, and the same way we would be in touch with each other on crime or any increases in crimes, we are in touch on hate crimes, and we're working to figure out how we can be more organized and how we can approach this even better as the days go forward. We are exploring how we might expand our outreach, our investigative efforts, and our intelligence efforts. Success is not final. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm glad we are here today, and I applaud this effort, and I applaud the work that the Hate Crimes Advisory Council has done thus far. Thank you.
Chief State's Attorney Patrick Griffin and his office oversee the administration of the council.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think it's particularly fitting that we meet today to discuss revamping and revitalizing Connecticut's hate laws. Only 3 days ago, the world in somber remembrance reflected on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, where some 1.1 million souls perished in what can be rightly described as the greatest, most infamous hate crime in human history. British historian Ian Kershaw famously wrote that the road to Auschwitz was built by hate, but it was paved with indifference. The work of the Hate Crimes Advisory Council and Governor Lamont's leadership in reshaping Connecticut's hate crime statutes sends a clear and unambiguous message to the people of this state that we are not indifferent to hate. In order to hold offenders accountable and ensure consistent investigations and prosecutions statewide, it is crucial that Connecticut's hate crimes are comprehensive, that they're concise, that they're clear. And simply put, the current statutory scheme is not. First, Connecticut hate crimes, as has been noted, are not even called hate crimes. Let's call them what they are. Second, the applicable statutes do not appear in a single section or a chapter. They are spread out over 21 individual sections. Clearly, this hinders police and prosecutors in the performance of their duties. It makes investigations more difficult, and it makes charging decisions more difficult. Third, the language used to refer to the protected classes in the various statutes is inconsistent. For example, while many statutes cover religion. The ridicule statute of 53-37 also uses terms such as denomination and creed as separate protected categories. It is an axiom in the law that ambiguity in the law causes confusion. Finally, and perhaps most importantly to law enforcement, the intent requirements of the various statutes are inconsistent. Such inconsistencies overly complicate charging decisions. I stand with the governor in pledging the Division of Criminal Justice's support. I concur with Commissioner Higgins, and I applaud the efforts of the Connecticut State Police Hate Crimes Unit. And I will tell you that the Commissioner, as he indicated, we are in touch, and I do think that the Division of Criminal Justice has to take a more proactive role with that unit. And I am envisioning in the coming weeks the division taking steps, perhaps even providing additional resources. So again, I would thank the governor for inviting me to share my thoughts on this important and timely topic. So thank you.
Next, we'll hear some statistics and community impact information from Erica Brunwasser, the Assistant Regional Director of ADL.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Brunwasser. I'm the Associate Regional Director of ADL Connecticut, the Anti-Defamation League. Imagine a 10th grader finding 2 swastikas carved into his football locker. He looks around and sees that only his locker has been targeted because he is Jewish. Imagine that you're walking in a local park with your family and find racist and white supremacist graffiti with your young children. Imagine a store owner arriving to his shop for the day and finds the word Jewish spray painted across the front. Each of these incidents have taken place in Connecticut within the past year. Imagine the impact on each individual and community. In 2023, ADL Connecticut responded to over 574 hate incidents reported to us. That's a 450% increase in hate incidents of all types over 5 years. ADL reports that anti-Semitic incidents have increased 670% in just 4 years here in Connecticut. Connecticut now has the opportunity to make changes to our hate crime laws to make sure that we can appropriately address hate when it happens in our communities. ADL looks forward to working with our legislators to share our expertise on hate crimes and incidents. Thank you to Governor Lamont for your leadership on this important issue that impacts our quality of life in Connecticut.
Thank you. Ken Barone of the UConn IMRP and Michelle Carrero, member of our council, took the lead in launching reporthatect.gov.
Thank you, Amy. As many of you know, hate crimes are vastly and systemically underreported. And for that reason, the council determined that we needed to put together a public-facing reporting portal under which the public could report these hate crimes. That system is called reporthate.ct.gov. With this system, Connecticut residents will now be able to report hate crimes or hate-based incidents that have happened to them or their family members or that they happen to witness directly to the state. Using reporthatect.gov, the public will be able to provide the location, the date, the time of the incident, the type of bias involved, such as race, age, disability, whatever you have. And the reporter can also describe the incident in text and upload photos or videos of the incident. The reports are going to be analyzed by the UConn Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy, which Ken will talk a little bit more about a little bit later. And we think that the most important thing for you to understand is that hate has no place in Connecticut. It's critical for state agencies to understand how hate is affecting Connecticut residents in order to prevent hate crimes. ReportHateCT.gov, together with the updated hate crimes and bias incident reporting policy and form approved by Post Council, will enable Connecticut to obtain an accurate understanding of the extent of hate crimes and bias incidents in this state. With this information, Connecticut will be able to make policy decisions, design educational programs, and deploy resources to combat the harmful effects of hate.
Just real quickly, Connecticut is one of the first states in the country to create a public reporting tool for hate crimes, bias incidents, and crimes with bias elements. Not only have we helped law enforcement in Connecticut improve how they collect information when they go to a scene where they believe a hate crime has occurred, or a bias incident, or a crime with a bias element. But there are some people in the public that witness things, and they want to know where to go. First, you should know, always call 911. You have police partners here in Connecticut. All of that information is being funneled to the state police hate crimes unit so they can help develop the appropriate response. We also have a public reporting tool. If you're not sure whether an incident was a hate crime or a bias incident or a crime with a bias element, go to reporthate.ct.gov and let us know about it. It will not only allow us to better track and understand what we're experiencing here in Connecticut so we can make better policy to improve and eliminate these incidents from occurring, but it will also allow us to better understand the impact of these incidents on the community. Reporthate.ct.gov. We need people to start reporting. These incidents are wholly underreported across the country, and Connecticut, with the leadership of Governor Lamont and the Governor's Hate Crime Council, is taking the lead in capturing this information so we can be better informed moving forward.
It's my pleasure to introduce Governor Ned Lamont.
Well, thanks to Hate Crime Advisory Council, everything you've done, keep this forefront in our state. Special thanks to the police for prosecuting this, making sure that Pat Griffin put these guys where they ought to be. Special thanks to the professors who helped consolidate this law and make sure it's understandable and enforceable. You may ask, crime is crime. What is a hate crime? I think about it a little bit like a stone into a pond and the ripple effect, and that an act of kindness or a good idea can have a ripple effect in a very positive way, way beyond its initial. And hate can have a ripple effect in an incredibly dangerous way. And that's what a hate crime does. When you commit a crime against somebody because of the color of their skin, because of their religious background, because of their sexual orientation, when you make that part of the crime, when that is pronounced on social media, I'm doing this, I'm going after this Jewish kid at a college because of their background, that has a ripple effect in a very dangerous and negative way. As you heard from the ADL, when you see that noose, when you see that racist language out there, it's a crime against that individual. It's also a whistle, dog whistle to others to commit similar type crimes. And that's why we take this with the utmost seriousness. That's why we treat it differently than just an individual crime, as Renell mentioned. And this is why every day we want to make it easier for you to report this, easier for us to be able to enforce it, and make sure people know we're here fighting for you.
We'll take on-topic questions.
Could someone explain the significance, and maybe Mr. Griffin could comment on it too, of dropping this malicious intent requirement? You spoke of the difficulties of the intent, so could perhaps go to the microphone and explain to us what the point is of that.
So without, we could have a 2-week law school class on intents, but let me begin by saying that when you look at, for example, the offense of intimidation based on bigotry or bias in the first, in the second, and the third degree, which accounts for approximately 80% of the hate crimes that are charged in the state of Connecticut. The first two counts, or the first two offense categories, bigotry and bias in the first degree requires malicious plus, and the second degree requires malicious plus. The third degree does not. So the offense of intimidation based on bigotry or bias in the first degree provides that a person is guilty of such offense when such person maliciously, with the specific intent to intimidate or harass another person, motivated in whole or in substantial part by a protective social category or protected class such as race. Now, you compare that to the second degree, its specific intent and motivation, but not malicious. I'm sorry, the third degree, not malicious. So when you look at it, you have effectively three different intents in the same offense. What does that cause? It causes ambiguity. It causes hesitation, and it often, and this is something that I didn't know whether I was going to raise, but I am going to raise it. Often law enforcement reacts after a horrific incident, right? In other words, there's a terrible murder, and that murder may be motivated by hate crimes, and then for the first time we look and say, we have a problem here. If we were to have a murder, there's no enhancement for a murder committed as a hate crime. So this year I went to Boston, to the Black Prosecutors Association. I had an opportunity to interact and meet with a federal prosecutor who handled the cases in Charleston, South Carolina, in which you all remember that horrific incident in which a white supremacist went into a church. Folks were engaged in a prayer service. He waited in the prayer service and then stood up and went down the line shooting someone. Connecticut's hate crime statutes that are currently in place would force a prosecutor potentially to dilute the intent element and confuse a jury. And what does that mean? I'm going to be completely clear. It means we won't charge it in that way because you're going to pursue the murder. But there should be vindication for the fact that the person committed that murder with the intent not only to kill those innocent folks in the church, but to send a message to the entire black community. And so, like, when I look at this, intent has to be fixed.
Is proving maliciousness more difficult, makes it more difficult?
Yeah.
In what ways? How do you, I guess it goes to a frame of mind, but I mean, how do you go about proving maliciousness?
Well, I'll give you an
or could you define that?
Now, I don't know that I can, but I'll give you this example. An intent to commit murder is the intentional taking of a human life. Now, a jury doesn't know that what the penalties are when they're deliberating, and so if we charge a bias crime, it doesn't knock that murder up, and it potentially confuses the jury on the various intents. Now you're adding malicious to it, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm being clear. Prosecutors look to prove the most serious, readily provable offense. That's what we do. That's what they pay us to do. Fix these statutes so that we can reflect that the most serious, readily provable offense, when it's involving a hate crime, should be charged that way, and give a jury the opportunity to evaluate the evidence and make a decision.
And is the report up now? Is it online?
It's currently available, and we're probably by March we'll be doing a larger launch of reporthate.ct with a PSA that's being done by a local agency, Go agency here in Hartford, to get the word out to the public. But you can currently today go to reporthate.ct.gov, start reporting hate crimes, bias incidents. That information is coming to us right now.
Thanks. And Erica, is there a discrepancy between what the ADL gets reported and what the Commissioner of Emergency Services was talking about? There seems to be higher numbers that you're reporting than...
Maybe the Commissioner can speak to that.
Sure. So the question, as I understand it, was whether or not the numbers that the ADL receives are different than the numbers. I'm speaking specifically to the numbers that are reported, the crimes that are reported directly to us. There are a number of incidents and crimes that are reported to the ADL that aren't necessarily reported to the Connecticut State Police.
What is the criteria for the hate crimes unit, the state police, to take over a case? Are you talking about things that occur in communities that don't have a municipal police force, or are you talking about cases that would get referred to you by even places that do have?
Sure. That's a great question, Pastor. So the Connecticut State Police Hate Crimes Investigative Unit supports investigations within the Connecticut State Police, but we also provide support. Okay, we don't. The local police departments aren't relinquished from their responsibility to investigate these crimes, but we will provide support to those different departments. And as I said earlier, we're looking at how we may coordinate differently to improve that coordination of support, not only within our own organization, but with local police departments as well. Again, we want to bring about a holistic approach to this, not just investigations, but outreach and education as well.
I was under the impression that one of the primary functions in this area by the state police were the tracking, right, to have good data. So How big is this unit? I mean, so how many investigators are there, and also in addition to the folks who are, again, tracking this to make sure there's a complete picture of hate crimes?
Another great question. So when I became commissioner, we had a supervisor and 2 detectives assigned to the hate crimes investigative unit. As of today, there's space again for a supervisor and 2 investigators. Colonel and I are currently looking at the how that unit is set up right now in terms of the number of people, but it's not just sworn members. We're looking at again how we can include others as a part of that as a part of the unit as well. We are now using our data scientists to look at the best ways to track those numbers as well. So we're looking at our hate crimes investigative unit more holistically because we want to refine best practices. We want to work really closely with the Hate Crimes Advisory Council, who's done some amazing work working with the Post Council. So we are committed. We're locked in.
Excuse me. As part of the revision process, are penalties being revised as well?
For the laws?
Yes.
So the advisory council's proposal includes as part of it, not just consolidating the existing offenses, but also adding a hate crime penalty enhancement. And there the idea is that in Connecticut, you can, under current law, bring a hate crime charge. But in many other states, they have a penalty enhancement approach. The idea there is that they charge the regular crime, and then if they prove those elements, and that they can also prove, in addition, that the crime was committed motivated by race or religion or something else, there's an additional increase in the penalty. And so we don't have that currently in Connecticut, and the Hate Crime Advisory Council's proposal would add that piece to our law.
I was just wondering, how does this, Commissioner, affect how the troopers might charge someone? Or is that something where after their initial encounter, it goes kind of up the ladder and then more charges might come afterwards?
Anytime there's changes in the laws, whether it's the Connecticut State Police or local law enforcement here in Connecticut, there's always training and advisements that come down from our state's attorney's office. So we expect that to happen. But again, as you heard from our chief state's attorney, the whole idea is to clarify things. We need to provide our law enforcement officers within the state with certainty, and that certainty will cascade up as well within the courts.
Just as a follow-up to that, I've asked each state's attorney to designate an individual in their office as a hate crime liaison so that the hate crimes unit can pick up the phone and get an individual who's versed in the statutes. Because these are complicated issues.
Thanks, everybody.